pausing out here. Welcome. Glad you've joined us, but I'm actually stalling for time to let everybody's computers catch up and get you in, so that you don't miss anything because you're not going to want to miss anything from this broadcast. Um, Thank you for attending. Thank you for coming in. This is Prospecting to the Elite with our guest David Baker. Really looking forward to this discussion. Um, and now I think I've given you enough time. We've got so much stuff to get through. We're going to go ahead and move forward. Just a little bit about us. First off, my name is Matt Hicken. I'm the Senior Vice President of Consulting here at Bill Good Marketing. I've been in the business for about 25 years, worked in the industry with a financial advisor's practice, fully licensed, operate as a financial advisor, marketing director, team lead for about 14 of the years I've been in this industry. I came back to Bill Good to work with great advisors like David. To me, my passion is about serving your clients, making sure they are well taken care of. And I figure I can only do that so much if I was an advisor myself, but working with guys like David and many more like him who are trusted advisors who care passionately about their clients, I can now, in a roundabout way, serve quite a few more of these wonderful families that need your help. So that's a little bit about me and a little bit about David, but I want to talk about him for a minute and hopefully embarrass him. But Dave is one of my favorite people, and that is because he is um, extremely coachable. He recognizes, as his clients do, where he has expertise and where an outside experience or a professional could potentially lend some advice, some help, some counsel. He takes everything that's given, and as evidenced by the fact that we're doing this webinar and you saw the promo and the results, it works, and it works every time. And it's because David has a passion about being the best, and being the best because his clients deserve it. So, David, thankfully, has been working with us for a while now. I've had the privilege of being his coach for a little bit, and yeah, I'm excited to be able to welcome him in. But David, I'll let you introduce yourself with some more of the standard stuff that everybody wants to hear about you.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. First of all, it's really exciting to be here. I can't wait for, like we talked about before, being able to present on stage in Nashville. But nevertheless, very exciting. But yeah, so I've been part of Bill Good since 2022. So while I've been with the firm a little bit, not as long as many of the gorillas that you'll hear from. But I've needed it. I needed it. I started as an advisor back in 2009. Right out of college, I started in '08. On the administrative side of things, working as an assistant for some very good advisors to well, at the time I thought they were very good advisors. At Smith Barney years and years ago, which is no longer even out there because Morgan Stanley took over, but eventually went independent, and that's where I'm at today. Um, I'm loving this journey. To me, this is just so much fun because I'm able to talk to such awesome people and help people, and I get to choose who I want to work with, which is absolutely fantastic. It's really exciting. And we're just doing so many new and cool things this year just because of the evolution of everything. When I first started with Bill Good, I was actually working with Matt's brother, Spencer. Love that guy. And when we did the whole setup, he came out to my house during COVID or when things were still shut down. I'll put it that way. Couldn't
Yeah.
really go out and do things. And so it was really, really amazing. We even got my assistant on Teams and stuff like that, Microsoft Teams, to help us, get everything set up because we needed that. But man, it's been an awesome ride, and I'm just having so much fun because, I think a lot of times, I think the reason why I'm enjoying it so much is because many people focus on hitting a certain goal. And for me, while there are goals that I like to hit, the journey is just so much fun. It's ridiculous. So the journey is what keeps me going, and that's a little bit about me.
And it's to me that's such a critical aspect, and we'll talk about that as we get into the mindset. But before we fully dive in, a little bit of housekeeping. As you know, those that have attended webinars with us before, we love to hear from you. We love to have questions. We love to have your responses. It makes these webinars so much better when you are participating. So In fact, we would prefer to do these live, which we're doing at AdvisorCon, and we'll talk about that. But if you have any questions, please drop into the chat. We would love to hear from you. If you have things like, even if you want to drop in before we really get started and say, hey, make sure you address XYZ topic. Great. We'll make sure we can try to squeeze it in. You can use the chat or you can use the Q&A. I have both up and I'll be watching those, or our team here will be keeping an eye on them too. But please participate. Second, obviously, again, if you've attended any of our webinars, you know that we like to give things away. But we also like to ensure that we get information from you. So motivation for that is to give things away, which is this. So we will talk about the mindset. We will talk about some of the shifts that David has gone through in order to work with high net worth households and to move up market in that way. A lot of those techniques are included in this 16 steps of a master sales presentation. It's a great document. Honestly, it's one of those few that I feel a little odd about just giving away, but we're going to give it away. So if at the end, if you'll stay to the end, you'll fill out a brief questionnaire just so we can get some information from you and to learn how we can better help you. Then you'll be able to download this. One of the things that I'll mention right at the beginning that we're talking about is getting a 2-year plan. So David started with us. We created a plan for him, walked through it. We've created since other plans as he continues to complete everything and move on to the next level. So that 2-year plan is a wonderful start. We would love to go through that with you. So that being said, obviously there's always the question, and it's the stats. How did we get here? Where's David at? What's going on? So, David, obviously, before we talk through all this stuff, would be when you first started with us. About where were you in both production and then your average sized account?
Yeah, so go back to 2022, average size account about 600,000, most of which, by the way, were under 600K, keep in mind. Probably around the 4 to 5, 600 area. With a couple of bigger ones sprinkled on top of that. Like I landed a big one with my partner, um, you know, 10 years ago, but that about 180 million combined, but on average, I'd say because of the big one relative to all the small ones comparatively, about 600K, I'd say is average at that
Yeah.
point.
Great. And so honestly, pretty good. That's a good advisor business, definitely above average. Um, but obviously you had goals. You had
Yeah.
things that you wanted to achieve and they certainly weren't to stay on the same trajectory and they definitely were to really kind of exceed all expectations and everything that was set out there for you. So we made an upgrade, right? Obviously, the math is fun, and this is one of those things that I get to go through with advisors all the time. Of hey, if our average size account is 250,000, how many accounts do we have to open to get to 50 million in new assets per year?
A
Too
lot.
many is the answer to that question. More than most teams can open in a year. So obviously, to get to those numbers, we have to change who we're working with. And there's a lot of changes to that. So you and I talked. We worked with Spencer. We adjusted who we were targeting. Obviously, that took place, and you can kind of see in the graph exactly what happened after we made that adjustment. So now, what would you say your average size account stands today?
So I personally will not, unless it's like a family member type thing, take on accounts that are under a million. The norm is realistically closer to 1.5. And then today AUM stands at about 340 million. So we've really put the foot on the accelerator since we started, which is just so cool to see.
Yeah. So a couple of questions that have come in that I think that it's uh, yeah, that I think are important to address. So one of those is how long were you in the business before you started with us? So you said you
So
started in 2009, right?
started as an advisor in '09. So what's that? 15, no, 13 years before with you guys? Yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
about
Yeah.
13 years.
So there you go on that. But that being said, to me, one of the bigger things I think that we adjusted or that you adjusted and changed in moving from the average size account you were working with, and or we could even talk like the average account that you were working with versus what who you're working with now. And probably one of the biggest things that we talk, well, actually, let me show you this too, because this is the fascinating thing. Um, there's the average advisor's growth rate in the industry. So this is based upon base industry standards. You can see obviously there's a slight difference between where David is in his growth pattern versus the average advisor. So that is literally why we are talking and discussing how you can have this degree of separation occur after this adjustment. So that being said, I'm going to stop sharing because I prefer the presentation be David rather than slide. So let's talk through, because there were several piece things that had to be adjusted, things that you went through in order to change. And I think one of the biggest things you and I talked about that you went through was a change of mindset, and really kind of changing the mentality of who you're going to work with and why you were the specialist to be working with them. So walk us through that. What were some of the thoughts? What were some of the things that you did in order to adjust that?
So it's a little bit of a journey here. So back when I first started, I mean, I didn't even know anything, right? Like you get into the industry, it's like you're drinking. You guys used to laugh when you started working with me. Oh, it's drinking out of a fire hose, and then that's exactly it, because it's new stuff, it's things you haven't done, and that's precisely what happens when you move from college into the industry. But I got into it and I started learning. Took my Series 7, 66 insurance, all that kind of stuff that everyone has to do. And then eventually I decided like, hey, this is cool. I'm here, I'm learning, but I knew it wasn't enough just to have those licenses. So I decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to take things a little bit further. So after I went independent, there was actually um, the opportunity to get kind of an education on retirement from Wharton. So I took that opportunity and I thought it was excellent, tremendous, and kind of gave me a little bit of validity for understanding some of the things that I understood, because a lot of what I saw when I was at my first firm, I just didn't agree with. I'll put it that way. And so I wanted to learn as much as I could. Well, fast forward the clock to 2020, I get my CFP, and I decided to get all the other letters you see behind me. But I think what really bothered me behind all that is that I understand education and how important that is, but none of that stuff really taught me how, in my opinion, the way that I could understand it, to really talk to clients about how to invest the right way. And Matt, you know me as a very passionate person, and just to be very blunt about it, I get really aggravated when I see people being given bad advice. It just annoys the living you know what out of me, because I know it's bad. I could literally look at a statement and see investments and be like, what the heck do you have that for? It doesn't make any sense to me. But I didn't know that stuff before I decided to take it upon myself to learn it. And so what I decided to do is I decided to read, and you guys can choose whoever you want, but I decided to read everything that had Warren Buffett's name on it, because I wanted to understand all the ins and out about equity selection, about risk on, risk off. I really wanted to be able to follow things because I love it. I have a passion for it. And I think it's a lot of fun. Once I understood that stuff, then I was like, you know what? I'm going to apply this stuff to my own personal portfolio. Man, did things start to take off. I'm like, holy cow, I need to really start implementing this with a practice and start talking to clients this way. And that's precisely what I did. And so ever since I started talking about that, I remember, and I'm sure you remember this. It was only a couple of years ago. It was prior to you and I working when I was with Spencer, where I was having trouble just literally getting somebody that had a lot of money to say yes to me. And I didn't really understand what the issue was. So I thought to myself, well, clearly just having the letters behind my name isn't good enough. And they're not just going to give me millions because they like me, quote unquote. I got to have some kind of specialty knowledge. You don't just go to a doctor because you like them, you go because they're good, type thing. So in that circumstance, I started to apply everything and I took those principles and they worked. And now it's funny because when I get in front of somebody it doesn't really matter how much money they have, if it's in the 7 to 8 figures, because those, and don't get me wrong, it's not that they're different people, it's that they have different needs because of the level of assets that they have. And if I didn't take it upon myself to literally research on an ongoing basis because I love understanding this stuff, then I wouldn't be able to talk to folks the way that I talk to them. And quite frankly, I know that I know more than 98% of advisors out there. I know that. And if somebody might come up to me and ask me some questions as if they're testing me almost, and I think it's a joke when they ask me those things because I just know it through and through. And it's so funny because, to me, when I see bad things, I'll explain point blank why it's bad. I'll explain why it does not align with their goals. I'll explain why holding certain investments that are based on a rule when you could have promises is just so outrageous to me, Matt. We talked about that earlier, which, we can talk about that at a different point. But nevertheless, the mindset really changed to that. And what I was able to do with that knowledge is reposition myself. I'm not the investment guy anymore. I am not the investment guy. What I tell every single person that I bring on is that I need you to view me as your household CFO. I am not the person that you call that sells you something and you walk into their office and they got brochures sitting all over their desk, which mind blowing to me when somebody calls himself an advisor and does that. But when somebody comes in, I want to know everything that they've got. I want to know everything that they care about. I want to know everything about their goals. I want to know all of it. And I tell them, like, hey, an investment advisor helps you do everything that a CFO does if you've got the right one. And it's not just investments, though, it's wealth manager, wealth advisor. So I am their household CFO. They are their household CEO or co CEOs. And because of that, and I tell them that, they understand that they need to start delegating this stuff. And I don't tell them I know more than them. I show them because of my confidence and my close to obsession with understanding this stuff because I really enjoy it.
Yeah. Hold on, I want to highlight a few of the things that you've said, and then you and I were talking before we started, and you shared a story that I think also highlights this. But so, and then I'm gonna ask you if you'll share it. But
Sure.
the key here is to me two things. First off, you have to learn everything, you have to understand everything, because the key there is you have to be able to talk the talk. Um, when you're in this market, that million to 10 million market, who David's targeting, we had a question in there: are there any wells in there? And no, this is not a David grew by 60 million because he brought in a $50 million account.
Mhm,
That's it. This is
mhm.
the ones, twos, threes, fours, 5 millions that we're bringing in. Nothing really bigger than that, right, David?
No,
Um,
not in recent memory.
yeah. So, no, this is not a he got one client and we're bragging about it. This is so the key is that this target market, they have access to lots of information. They can chat GBT it or Gemini it or whatever, and ask questions and get basic information. What they're looking for is an expert. They're looking for somebody that they can hand things off to. When you're talking to a small business owner or somebody who's had success in life, the way they've had that success is they've found key people that will help them with certain aspects in their life. And they will dig. They know enough to dig. They know enough to seek out somebody who's, BSing them, and somebody who really knows their stuff. And they'll test you out and they'll see. And the thing that I'm seeing more and more as I study these surveys and research results for the high net worth and ultra high net worth is they are aggressively seeking out those advisors who are not the investment managers. They are seeking out the advisors who will take care of their entire financial picture and surround them with the services that will help them get to where they need to go. So, David, your push into this, your desire to become the expert, yes, obviously it's giving you the intelligence, the knowledge, and the understanding of how to do it, but it's also giving you the ability to speak it, to talk that language, to speak in a way that when somebody meets with you, they say yes. And to me, that kind of comes into this story that you shared before we started here of your most recent, person that just agreed to work with you. Why don't you walk us through that if you don't mind?
So it's not the biggest account by a long shot that I've opened, but it's a huge victory for me from a qualitative standpoint and just a mindset standpoint. So there's this client that I brought on his wife for a very small amount 10 years ago, approximately, maybe closer to 11 or 12. And he's a guy who was working at a big corporation. And, at the time, of course, I knew probably a tenth of what I know today. But I was talking to him and I was like, hey, in your 401k, and this is what he had. I was like, but you can do more in an IRA and you're limited in there and you can do more out here, this, that, and the other. And that was almost the extent of my pitch. Like it was bad. Like great. the other stuff might be bad too. So why would I move my money to you type thing?
Yeah, yeah,
So, but I didn't know. It was a long time ago. And so, nevertheless, did a review with his wife last year, in the last year, and husband was just happened to be there. And I said, his name's Bruce. I said, Bruce, I'd really, if you're open to it, love the opportunity to look at your stuff because I got to tell you, I am not the same person that you met 10 to 12 years ago. You're not going to hear me say, "Oh, you should just do this because it's got more options." You're not going to hear me say, and because I remember it, like this is a guy I've been trying to, yeah. So, I said, what I'm going to show you is ways that you can actually accomplish the things that you want. And if you're open to a second opinion, I already like you, and I know you like me. So if you're open to a second opinion, if you don't have any issues with it, can we have a conversation? And I just said it that way, and I was very direct about it. And he said, "You know what? Why not? Let's see what happens." And I said, "Well, I will promise you this is going to be a very different conversation than it was years ago." So we scheduled a meeting. Long story short, we get in there. The guy tells me that he rolled his money over to an advisor he's had for years. He was referred to the advisor. He's made money. He wasn't upset about where he was. So there wasn't any real like issues in his mind that he had.
yeah.
But what he did say to me was that every single month now that he's in retirement, he's short on cash flow. And I said, "Well, wait a minute. How are you short on cash flow when you've got all this money accumulated?" So what I did is I customized the portfolio for him to derive income off of his assets that generated him the ability to have peace of mind every single month and not go into the red every month, at least in his mind, and restructured it and explained it in a way that he really understood. And he says to me after it, he says, "Wow," he's like, "Yeah, I guess you do know a lot more than you did years ago. And I don't think that I'm getting this level of advice from my current guy." He's like, "I'm not going to say yes today." He said, "But let me talk to him, ask him a few questions and see, what he has to say. And then we can get back together and I'll let you know how I'm feeling." I said, "Okay, no problem."
Mm,
Long story short, we got back together and he said, "Oh, yeah, I already told my guy I'm leaving him. I'm giving you the money." So I'm sitting here laughing about it and with Matt before we get
yeah,
on this webinar because it was such a big win for me because it's literally over a decade in the making trying to
yeah,
get this guy's money. And there's going to be another huge amount that's coming through in about a year that I'm going to get from him because only about half of it was able to be touched today. So the exciting part about all this for me is that it was quite literally knowledge and confidence that allowed me to do this. And I mean, there's no turning back at this point because again,
yeah.
it goes back to me saying, I know more than 98 to 99% of advisors. And what he described to me, the response of the other guy was almost like he had no idea what he was talking about. And it's mind blowing to me.
Yeah, I love it. To me, there's a couple of highlights in there that I loved when you shared that story. Number one, I hear all the time advisors and many on this call may have been like, "Ugh," when you shared that he was going to go back to his current advisor, right? Because we hear, oh, they're going to go back to the current advisor. The current advisor is going to say, oh, I can do that, or I can make these adjustments, I can make these changes. My thought is, okay, when they do that, I'm just going to plant seeds, right? At the very least, in their mind that, okay, but if they could do that, why didn't they? And then if they weren't doing that strategy, what's the next strategy you're going to miss? Because that's the one I'm worried about for you, right? Because
Exactly.
the key here, and this is something I hope to point out. Um, David is extremely confident, and I love that, right? And I love that that's coming through on the call because it's one of my favorite things. The reality is that we want to know that the professional we're going to is extremely confident in what they do. But what's the difference between that and going to a jerk advisor, somebody that's just going to have that big pompous attitude and um, treat us poorly? Is the level of care, and that's the thing. That's the big thing, and you mentioned that earlier in the call that, this desire, this hate of anybody having something wrong in their financial plan or in their portfolio or anything, going on that is bad advice, um, that's the drive, that's the reason why we're like, "Hey, I confidently can help you take care of this, like, you should not be in this situation, let's fix it." It's that care that comes in behind that confidence is that wins, honestly. Um, so I love that highlights it. And then the other thing that I love about this is that, again, to your point, what a cool way to demonstrate, like, to yourself that all this
Oh,
work, everything you've been doing paid off. Like, because I know that you think about it, because I still think about it. I share it in the Asset Accelerator course I teach, that my first sales pitch, that I did all by myself, which was really just a whole lot of diarrhea of the mouth, and I still, like, cringe every time I even think about what I did to those poor people in that room, by just spitting out everything I could possibly think of. um, that's what drives me to do better at it. That's what drove me to improve my skills, and now I'm where I'm at. So to me, that's I love seeing that you're like, hey, no, no, no. I hear that conversation in my head all the time. I see where I was. I'm a very different person now, and I can help these people much better.
and it's one thing to your point to say it, it's another to show it. I mean,
Yes.
when I walk into that, and when we had this meeting, and so that we're clear, just for folks on here, I do things mostly virtual. Like most of the stuff that I do is not in office. This was the same, but the only reason is because of efficiency. That's it. I mainly do it because I can run 10 meetings in a day and not have to move from my chair. Now I might miss lunch because it's back to back, but still, probably not the best thing for my health. But nevertheless, it makes me more efficient. So
Yeah.
to that point, when I talk to somebody though, and I see something in their portfolio, it triggers aggravation in me. Like my
Yeah.
brain does get annoyed because my entire goal is to help them accomplish what they really want. And when I see bad advice, I'm going to ask them questions. And I know that the response in most cases, and I'm not mean about it, but I will point blank say, like, hey, if you choose to continue to do this, you're choosing to be in a problematic situation, depending on what said situation is. And I'll say that point blank to them. But if you choose to move on this side of things, then all of a sudden we just eliminated that risk to some extent. And that triggers them. It really does. It makes them realize, oh, wow. So this is an issue. This is what this is the reason why it's an issue, rather than just saying, oh yeah, this hypothetical pie in the sky idea. No, I'm telling you that this is a problem for this reason, and if you don't change it, it's going to continue to be a problem until we do. And then they're like, oh, well, that makes sense. And if you say it with that confidence, because I actually know what I'm talking about, um, then it's going to work. Or at least my experience is that it was going to work. I mentioned earlier I was having struggle in bringing people on and having high net worth folks saying yes to me. Well, now it's almost like I'm expecting them to say yes every time because I know everything I'm saying is going to make a big
Yeah.
improvement. So it's funny, and and it has the numbers prove that too. It's crazy. It's awesome.
Totally. Yeah. Well, so a few questions that are in here that I do want to address, because I think there's some great ones. So first off, this one should be pretty quick. Do you do a fee for financial planning, or are you exclusive AUM investment fees?
Mostly just exclusively AUM. I don't really do charge for fees. It's just not something that I'm interested in doing.
Yeah, cool. And that answers there are a couple of those that were asking along those lines. This question I love just because of his last point. So I'm just going to read it directly. From a technical expertise perspective, which books or designations were crucial to developing your knowledge? And you could list 20 and I will research them all. And I love that statement. He does an
Well,
LOL at the end, but I love
I
that. So
know.
if there is anything that you're in particular that you've read or looked at that you're like, hey, actually that was super helpful.
So yeah, there are a couple things. So the first one is that I think that if you don't have a CFP, you just have to do it. People will just say no to you and won't even meet with you if you don't have it. And it's not that everything in the CFP course load is going to make you more money. It'll help. Don't get me wrong, because people view that as something. But for me, that's more of a marketing thing, if I'm being honest. Does it make you a fiduciary, and do you have to follow the guidelines? Absolutely. But is that easy to do? No question. It's not hard. So the
Yes.
CFP is the one thing you got to do. Beyond that, like I said, I basically opened everything that Warren Buffett's name is on. So, start there, really.
Mhm.
But also, I would highly encourage anyone on here, if you really are in investment management, to buy the book The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham. Um, yeah, and that comes up constantly. It is such an amazing book. It is so dry, it is so boring, but when you understand the content that it's teaching, and this is what I did. I took that and then I used that information. And there's another book that I used, which was what was it? Financial Analysis of Balance Sheets with Warren Buffett or something like that, just to understand it. So I knew it. And I took all that stuff, but I applied it to my own investments rather than trying to recommend stuff that I've never experienced before. I did it for myself. And it worked. And man, did it work well. And because of those things, what really got me excited was that if I knew I could do it for myself and it works amazing, then I can confidently say this is going to be something that you should be, or that I'm going to be recommending. I'll put it that way, and the strategy and the way that we go about it. So it wasn't just like a one or two book thing. It was a combination of getting the confidence of people with some designation, plus the additional desire to understand details of investments. Because if we're being honest with ourselves, the planning for estate planning and tax planning, all that stuff is really, really important. But from what I have personally experienced, the folks that really want to talk to me are the ones that really want to know that I'm an expert when it comes to investment selection, because they're giving me their money, for crying out loud.
Yeah,
And if they don't feel that I'm an expert, that's a problem. But you got to have a basis for being able to say that.
totally. Well, and we've got several questions on the investment side of things, but I'm going to skip over those because that yes, sure, it's out there, but it's not one of our four things. So the number one thing that we've already talked about and that was proposed, and this was one of the questions, can we get to the four things? Number one is the mindset. So
Yeah,
that is why we're spending this time, because to me that is the biggest one, and it's often the most overlooked because we assume that, hey, with the right marketing strategy, I can get in front of people. David, I think you could speak to that if we would took time on it. But yes, the right marketing strategy was getting you in front of the right people. But until that mindset changed, which was really fast because you recognized it and adjust and pushed and worked on it, um, you weren't getting a lot of yeses. And so to me,
right.
this is why we're spending time on the mindset. Is I can't say it enough. Yeah, I mean, we could throw out all the other marketing strategies. Bill Good Marketing has 12 marketing channels. They all work, and they can get you in front of these high net worth individuals. But until you have the right mindset, they're not going to close. And you could get in front of a room of people in a seminar and make a somewhat great presentation. But without this mindset and this attitude, it's yeah, you're not going to get the same number of appointments. So let's jump to the next one. So I apologize all those that asked for the investment questions. That those are interesting, and maybe David can address them at some other time. But I want to focus in on these other things. So number two, that as you and I were talking and going through things that we realized have to be in place are the processes, because what you can't do is go out there with all the knowledge, experience, tell somebody you're going to do some things for them, and then kind of drop the ball. So we have to have systems and things in place that ensure, number one, that we stay in front of them, right? I was talking to an advisor earlier today that we have the problem of we're losing people, right? And
Mm,
it's because his competition is out there talking about all of the services that they provide. While he provides them, he's not talking about it. So unless that stays top of mind, it doesn't happen. So we have ways of making sure that it occurs through messaging and so on, and we'll talk about that. But then also other processes, internal processes. So let's talk through what are some of the processes would you say are key, and you had to have in place in order for all of this growth to work.
well, I mean, you saw the trajectory and how that completely changed, or really impacted positively for me with Bill Good being my coach. So, in saying that, monthly drips, quarterly client reach outs, they're imperative. I mean, it's not optional. You have to do it. When I say monthly drips, I'm talking about the letters you send out every single solitary month on USPS. I'm not talking about emails, right? But in addition to that, you do emails. It's not one or the other. So I'm sending out letters every month. I'm sending out emails probably four, five, six times a month type thing, to everybody. I really am. So that's really important. So I'm always in front of them one way or the other. Now, as the practice has evolved, as we're trying to continually grow, because it's again a journey, I have gone from individual producer to a practice that looks more like I'm a true CEO. So what does that look like? Well, I've got my sales assistant. I've got a partner that works directly with me to help build out more advisors for the firm. I've got a marketing director. BGM likes to call that a sales assistant to some extent, but it really is, for what I have him doing, a lot more than just being a sales assistant. And so that's because I think of all the evolution that the practice has gone through that Matt and I are working on. Um, my gosh, does that help us get a lot done? I mean, it is incredible when you have the right people on your team that you trust, know, and like. Oh my, forget about it. And then everything has to go in the CRM. Everything. You call somebody, it's got to go in there. You have a conversation with somebody, it's got to go in there. all of it. If you don't, then how in the heck are you going to know where the conversation was left off if you've got all these people you're talking to? It's not realistic. I'll tell Hakel, who's my assistant, Matt, you know Hakel, I'll tell Hakel all the time, oh my gosh, my mind's spinning. There's too much stuff going on. She's like, oh, well, check this on this date in the client file in the CRM. I go there, I read it, shock, surprise, 10 seconds later, I know exactly what's going on. No problem. It's amazing. So that is really important. Um, when we bring somebody on, think about something. If you give millions of dollars to an institution or an advisor, you want to feel like they actually care that you gave them millions of dollars. Who wouldn't, right? So you and I have worked on a welcome process that has gotten great feedback. I send them a handwritten note to say thank you. I send them another letter over time to introduce the rest of the members on the team, such as the Hakel and Greg that I mentioned here. Um, they introduce our. We have an insurance specialist. I am terrible at insurance. I really enjoy investments. I do not get the. I'm not very good at keeping up with insurance. Well, we got a guy on our team that's been doing insurance for 41 years at this point. It's incredible. His name just also happens to be David. Great guy. So I'm just saying that because it's true. When you've got all
Yeah.
of these things in place, man, you've got a good team. But all of those things are introduced to the client via these letters and whatnot. And then what we'll also do is we'll send them a video on how they can log in online and how they can actually access their portal. And we use things like e-money for account aggregators and things like that so that I know exactly where things are. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And funny part is I don't do most of this. My team
Yeah.
does. And it makes
Nice.
me look like an all-star. Now, granted, I'll always tell everybody that I make the recommendations and my team runs the actual business, and they'll always laugh at that because they know that I'm ahead of it. But still, it's true. I'm not the one
Yeah.
doing all that stuff. They're the all-stars. And then the other thing is too, and I learned this from one of your extraordinarily successful advisors managing over $1 billion that they just passed through
Yeah.
in Alabama. But every single time we get a client who goes through a life transition, something exciting, something happy, even the condolence thing. Like you've got the whole packet of condolence letters or etiquette letters is what you guys have. And we send the etiquette letters. But you know what else we do? We send gifts. We do.
Mhm.
So if a client retires and they love M&Ms, I'm going to send them a 5-pound box of M&Ms. It's
Mhm.
funny. We did that for a lady who loved lifesavers. 5-pound box of lifesavers. And we put a little note in there that said something along the lines of how um, we really appreciate, your business and thank you so much. And here's, a box of candy to enjoy for the rest of your life type thing. It was just kind of like a way to go about it because what we do on the welcome process is we get a survey back for all the things that the client likes, the things the client, enjoys, their favorite food, what if they like to travel, where they like to go, their favorite drink, all these different things. Um, shock surprise and these types of gifts you get this huge box where industry says you can't spend a certain amount per year on a client. That's fine because a 5-pound box of M&Ms isn't all that expensive, or a 5-pound box of lifesavers isn't all that expensive. I think it was like 30 bucks. Okay, the client loved it. We got a referral that brought over another 7 figures. It's unbelievable. Little
Yeah.
things like that show that you care, and just by displaying that you care, it doesn't have to be a crazy gift. They just love to reciprocate. You take care of other people and they take care of you every time. It is unreal how that works.
Totally.
um, but we got a lot of
Yeah.
stuff like
Yeah, I love it. And so Scott Ferguson, and he's Mississippi, but
yes. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, you're
no,
right.
you're good. We do have that webinar out there, and maybe we can throw the link, but he talks through that gifting strategy, which is phenomenal and obviously a big part of his growth. So what I do want to do though is make sure we have enough time to dive into some of the other aspects of this.
Okay.
So you've mentioned your team. I want to share. This is the David's team. Um, Obviously, they're all phenomenal. You've already mentioned several of them, but if we could highlight just real quick a couple of the folks, you tell us a little bit about more what Hakel does, and then what Greg does for the team, and then we can dive right into how we're generating these leads and getting this business in the door.
So Hakel pretty much does everything administrative. I mean, she's the one who handles movements of money. She's the one who handles paperwork. She's the one who handles any type of issues with back office. Like she is the person that makes sure everything gets done. And man, is she good at it. I'll find things in like my inbox on Sunday afternoon, like, "What are you working when Monday morning rolls around for?" Is what I have to ask her. But she has that same kind of mindset, which is if she's got to get something done by a certain time, she's going to get it done. I mean, she's incredibly loyal. She's incredibly intelligent. And actually, I got referred to her from our branch compliance officer, and she's scared to do anything wrong for obvious reasons. I mean, I'm petrified to do anything wrong, but she's scared of doing anything wrong. And what's so funny to me is that when we have questions about compliance, I say, and again, her husband's name's David too. So when I say to Akel, I say, "Hey, Akel, ask David if this is okay." And she'll literally walk into the other room because they both work from home, ask him the question, and it's like, "This is great because we don't have to, go to the another person." So it
Nice.
speeds that up a little bit. But that's cool
Yeah.
because Kel's amazing, and she's the one I tell everybody that she actually runs the practice. I just kind of give advice. Um, Now, Greg, he's a new addition to our team. Now, Greg for a while was a contractor with us, and then we ultimately brought him on full time. Now, he does a ton of stuff, and he's pretty much my right-hand man when it comes to marketing. I mean, he does everything. Like, so we just kicked off a podcast within the last 2 weeks, which I'm beyond excited about. So we've got multiple episodes out there. But ultimately, we've got this podcast. Greg's the one who helped us set it up, get it approved, all the things, but through compliance, all these things. Greg is the one who handles making sure that we've got the monthly letters sent out on time and the content associated with it. Greg is the one who goes out there and if we get a referral or any type of person that needs to be scheduled, Greg's on the phone scheduling those folks. Greg's the one making the 90-day reach outs. Greg is the one who's ultimately focused on making sure that if something needs to get done from a client request standpoint, that he either communicates that to Hakel or he's able to do it because he's also licensed type thing. And so, all these extra ways that we're marketing and putting content out there, whether that be emails or social media or podcasts or whatnot, which we're really just getting started and scratching the surface on all this, which is beyond exciting. Greg's the reason for that. And while, I'm getting advice from you, Matt, and, I'm creating some content that we need to get approved and everything. Hakel and Greg are the ones that are in the trenches making it happen. And oh my gosh, wow, am I blessed to have them as part of the team.
Yeah. Oh, they are phenomenal, and
Oh,
I I love talking to them. I love seeing it because it's one of those things where I know that, hey, if I mention this on a call with you and we talk about something that needs to be done on the website or anything like that, it's going to happen. Greg's going to get it done. Hakel's going to make sure it moves forward. Yeah, it's definitely going to take care of it. So that Greg just posted in the chat. Uh, but yeah, so let's talk about where your leads come from. Where do the majority of your new accounts come from?
so, it varies. It really
Hmm.
does. Recently, there's been a lot more referrals, but also there's also been some just kind of inbound cold stuff that we weren't
Hmm.
expecting to some extent, which is really neat. So,
Yeah,
it kind of varies. I mean,
yeah.
I think that because of all the content and stuff that we're putting out there, we're starting to get traction. And I think as a result of that, that's really started to increase that. But all the drips and all the things through the other things that we literally just went through, I think that that's really helping from a referral standpoint because I do it exactly the way Bill Good suggests, which is you don't ask, you promote.
Mhm.
And that's just saying, hey, look, if there's somebody that you know that has this or that or the other, or they want to just talk about this stuff, I'm a resource here, but don't put them in an uncomfortable situation by asking. They will never want to give you any business if you do that. Just put
Yeah.
yourself in their shoes, and that's exactly what I think has really helped us too.
Totally. No, it's telling them who to look for, why that's an urgent thing that they get them to you, and then how to do it. How do they get them in front of you? So I think
Correct.
those are key things. So let's talk through because we've already talked through a lot of the things that you're doing in order to get referrals. Obviously, everything to do that we preach here at Bill Good Marketing and the client retention formula and the engagement formula are things that you're executing on. The gifting strategies, the monthly messages, the contacts, the meetings that are productive, not just a review of everything that's happened. Um, all of that stuff is what helps generate the referrals and qualified referrals, obviously. But let's talk about some of the things that are bringing in these cold leads potentially, because you've got a lot of stuff out there that could be attributed to those. And I think that's
Yeah.
it's one of the keys I think that people need to understand. It's not like, okay, well, if you put up an ad that has 70 words in it on Facebook, that's what's going to generate, 2 leads a month. That's not a thing. It's if I have the right branding, if I have the right strategy and I have the right communication and I have the right word of mouth going on, that's when these things occur. And the teams that I have that are getting those call ins, people just saying, "Hey, I need an advisor. I found you. I saw you." They may even attribute it to one thing. They may say, "Hey, I listened to the podcast and I figured it's time to see you." But when you bring them in and you ask him, it's like, "Oh yeah, no, I visited your website before." I had one advisor who's been doing videos for a long time and also doing a spot on the local news. Uh, Tell me that one of the his clients that came in, prospective clients until they closed, said that, "Well, you've been my advisor for years already," because he'd been seeing them for so long. So all of these things add up. So what are some of the things that you are doing that are kind of broad speaking, like getting out there to the market?
Yep. So social media posts happen 2 to 3 times weekly. All new material based on monthly themes, topics specifically to grab attention. Pictures involved with every post that's out there. That's one thing. We already talked about the monthly drip using the BGM library. We do that on an ongoing basis. The gifts we talked about for client retention, that sort of thing. Email marketing. So this is something that we do, but this is something that isn't just to existing clients, because within email marketing, what I mean is that I have a ridiculously large book of contacts. So, for example, most of the people that I work with tend to be executives that work at big corporations. I mean, when I first started working in the business, I made 3 to 500 cold calls a day, and I just targeted that demographic, which was corporate execs. So as a
Nice.
result, it's kind of evolved over for that. But now what we're ultimately doing with email is we're creating videos, and every single week, every single month, we're going to be, or we have been starting to send out targeted videos to specific demographics. For example, what I look for are like all the pain points that you might have in your certain occupation, whether that be you're a CPA or an estate attorney, because we talked about strategic partners all the time, corporate executives, firm attorneys, all these different folks. But I customize each video specifically for that demographic. And then I just send it every single solitary week. Not the same video, but new ones every single week. And they're only like 90 seconds or something like that. But it's on a topic that they know about and care about. There's also the pre-retiree one that's separate from those things. So we want to catch them young and we want to catch them old type thing, because we got a team to handle all of that, which is great. So to that point, we do that, and those go out for dripping purposes because I don't have a relationship with them. It's just an email. But then podcasting. So we put a podcast thing out there with some QR codes that people could follow and whatnot on social media, send emails out, putting it in our monthly drip as well. We're getting the content out there. And it's funny because I put out the first thing saying, "Hey, it's live," or actually Greg did, but "Hey, it's live. We got the podcast out there, and it's your new podcast. Listen in, that sort of thing." I got more reactions to that than any other post that I put out on social media in over 20 years.
Yeah,
Seriously, blew my mind. It was unreal. It
that's
was so
awesome.
cool. It was. So we're now doing the podcast, and we got a bunch of episodes out there. Overtime Earnings is the name of it. Spotify, Apple, and Apple, by the way, if you want a little commercial. Moving on. So when you look down at the next thing here, so strategic partners, it's been nothing but a huge push. So I know a lot of people think about strategic partners, CPAs, estate attorneys. That's what first comes to mind. The most successful strategic partner to date that I've gotten has been a property and casualty agent. It's unreal. These guys are incredible. I actually learned how to do that through BGM, but of course, also we have a guy on our team, Dave, the Dave White. So the insurance specialist, Dave has had a relationship with a different property and casualty agent for 20 plus years, and he gets all of his business that he doesn't personally solicit from that guy. It's amazing. So I was like, well, why wouldn't I do that? He said, well, it'd be dumb if you didn't. I said, okay, well, what do I do? He's like, this is what you do. So I did it, and all of a sudden it worked. Isn't that surprising? But anyway, so that's been unbelievable. Matter of fact, he gives me feedback on stuff for the podcast. It's incredible.
Yeah.
It's so having a good partner like that is amazing. And then, we're actually building a digital marketing company too, separate from our financial advisor firm, that we got an outside business activity approved by the head of compliance in New York City. So we're doing that with the PNC agent as well. That's how far the relationship is going. And what we're going to do with that is hopefully build some ways to help other professionals do really well in their business. And what do you think that's going to transpire into? Oh, well, you're my trusted guy. Why don't you talk to me about my finances? Because I've been listening to your podcast, by the way. All these
Yeah.
things kind of work together to really start the introductions and the referrals and things and the cold leads in, because it's never about doing one thing. A lot of people want to say that there's one thing to do. Whoever says that is, in my opinion, extraordinarily naive.
Mhm.
It's never about a one thing. It's about doing the same thing over and over, a same thing, similar things over and over, dripping and being out there in multiple ways so they can find you. The reason why Apple is the leading iPhone, or should I say smartphone producer in the world, is because you can't look anywhere in New York City without seeing a massive Apple poster or whatever. Same thing if you turn on the TV, it's always there. And it doesn't even have to be Apple that's like selling it. It's like T-Mobile or Verizon. It's crazy. So all these things combined are what really help.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And so, obviously, strategic partners is an exciting one, but
Yeah.
that is going to be the main focus of our presentation at AdvisorCon. So, uh, yeah, actually, throwing out there, we are doing AdvisorCon in Nashville in May. There are only a few tickets left. So if you want to hear David present, but also a lot of other presenters, and I'll show you that a little bit later, and he'll be talking through specifics of the strategic partner process that he's been going through and some of the exciting non-BGM things that he's developed in that process, which are phenomenal at that conference. So that'll be a great way to do it. But so let's talk a little bit about the social media posts because I want to highlight something that's key there. These are not just some posts that you've purchased. Some other group, including us, is the one posting them for you. These are custom to you posts.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's important, and I think Greg's the one that does that, right?
Greg does all, I create the content, he makes sure they go out at the right cadence and does all that stuff. Exactly.
Perfect. So, to me, the key to that is the voice and the sound. There's a
Mhm.
lot of different services out there that'll do your posts for you, and obviously, if you can't do it, you don't have a Greg, you don't have time or the skill or whatever to do a post. Totally understand. Something is better than nothing. However, a lot of those canned posts, they're not doing your brand any favors. They're not helping build you up. They're certainly not going to get any word of mouth going that's going to help significantly in bringing in new business. So I think that is a key point to bring out. Now, on your email marketing, talk us through what are some of the topics you discussed there. And you have approximately 4,000 people getting these emails. And then, and people are they responding to those? Are they coming in off of those? What does that look like?
So, just for clarification on there, that's one set of people that we send stuff out to, is the
Yeah, yeah, okay.
4,000 number. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So those are folks that have already gotten to know who I am. Those are folks that are some existing clients, many not, because I don't have 4,000 people that I work with, type thing.
Yeah.
But ultimately, when you see that, like what I like to send out every month is like so hand holding things as an
Mm,
example, right? So, you know, Matt Bailey. He has some of the best content in the industry, if not the best in the industry. He's such a good writer, it's unreal. But he comes back with a lot of things that, especially in times of turbulence, are really helpful. And the amount of responses that I get back that are just so thank you, thank you, thank you type things are incredible. So we'll send those out when necessary. I'll also just send out stuff that's like, hey, here's the updated like marginal tax rates for 2026 type thing now that the new tax law has been passed type thing. Here's some things you want to think about and fast forward the clock to like September. So it's, insurance awareness, life insurance awareness month, right? So let's think about, looking at Medicare or life insurance and why that matters type thing. So I try to keep with monthly themes, but we'll send out probably an email a week. So they get about four, maybe a little bit less, maybe like three, because I don't want to bombard them or anything. But I ultimately just want to make sure that we're delivering timely content. And so sometimes it'll be very like specific to what's going on in the markets or the economy. Sometimes it'll be very generic, like, hey, here are some things that you want to think about. We're in February. So I sent out a video that you commented on. It said, you know, today this is love your future month theme type thing, so think, and I just basically kind of elaborate on that. Now those are softer things, but for the specific targeted email marketing, like for example, if we're talking to CPAs or sending stuff to CPAs in our area, I'll make sure that one of the videos might include something that says like, "Man, are you so annoyed that your clients can never get you 1099s in time? Wouldn't it be nice if you had an advisor that you partnered with that if we were to share the same client, that could just literally, with their client's permission, send you the stuff that you need so you don't have to track the client down because they never get back to you type thing?" Little stuff like that so that
Yeah.
they can kind of see that I'm really customizing and catering to them. Another one for corporate executives. Oh, there's a plan that you can put out there that's for the purposes of selling your stock, even though you might be in a blackout period type thing. They might not even know that that exists.
Yeah.
But it's just something that's relative to them is the whole point, and that's what we've been trying to get to since I worked with you guys because we were mostly kind of canning everything just so that we can get it started. But we're now
Totally.
at that point where we can literally customize every little thing because I've got the team in place, and man, it's really cool to see.
Yeah. I love it. I absolutely love it. Which kind of just in summary, I want to share this with you. Because we talked about the four things. Number one is the mindset. I know we talked about that a good deal, but I cannot stress that enough. The campaigns work. You did seminars for a while. Of course,
I
they
did.
drew results. Of course, there's a lot of things that can work, but without the proper mindset, it's not gonna turn out to anything. The processes in place, again, these are things that you kind of talk over because you've been doing the processes for a while now. But I can't stress enough how important it is to make sure that you do have a process for everything. It's the teams that I go visit that are just trying to execute day to day and stay and working in the business without spending some time talking through, okay, this is the process, and then therefore here's a checklist or here's the workflow in our CRM that we're going to follow to get that done. They're constantly having to reinvent the wheel. There's a reason why the best CEOs, the top performers out there in any industry, try to limit the amount of decisions they have to make. It's energy they don't want to waste on that. They want to put all of their energy towards that other factor, which is you're putting towards serving your clients and getting more of them. So to me, that's a key piece. And then having the right team in place to allow you the space to do what you need to do. Getting Greg and getting Hakel at first was a phenomenal thing and changed
Oh, home
a
run,
lot for
home
you. I
run.
remember what that was like. And then Greg, as an addition, now suddenly we're getting all this more proactive work going. And the final piece is I can't stress enough how many times I've talked to an advisor and they're like, oh, well, we do seminars to grow. Well, cool. What happened in 2020? Right. Or, hey, we do cold calling. Well, what happens when a law changes? Like, or a whole company bars you from calling? Like, there are things that can occur that will change that. Now, I hope it doesn't. I really do. But the idea is have multiple channels operating and working at the same time that are generating a sufficient number of leads, which is what you have through introductions and referrals, cold leads coming off of email and referrals from strategic partners. All of these things are coming in. So if we referrals, introductions, cold and emails and things, and then strategic partners, that's our four channels. But we've got a lot of marketing out there to ensure those are as successful as they possibly can be. So if you can get these four things in place, you will see the success that you should see. Obviously, we can help you with that. Which kind of coming to the end at AdvisorCon, there's going to be a lot of those discussions. Scott here is who we referred to earlier, but we'll have David speaking. A lot of wonderful presentations will be given. Uh, there's a wonderful agenda put together for you out in Nashville. So if you have not booked tickets and you've been thinking about booking tickets, or you've been one of those saying, "Oh, I'll get that taken care of," yeah, unfortunately, we're running out of seats. So we're hopefully you can. We want you to sign up. We want you to get in because this is going to be a phenomenal conference. So promised a goodie bag at the very end. Here's the goodie bag. Here's the link. Go ahead and click that QR code. You can click the link in the chat. Either way, we'll get you to the questions, answer those. Obviously, we want to offer you a 2-year plan strategy. We want to be able to help you do the same things that David has done because the more of you we help, the more families and individuals I know are getting served by a good, trusted advisor, which is key. So scan the QR code, download that, get that taken care of. Thank you very much for attending. David, as always, really appreciate your time. I know it's valuable, and I appreciate you spending some time sharing some of your insights and thoughts and ideas with all of us.
I really appreciate you having me, man. It was an honor.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.